homicides to date. For a city that size, that's alarming, that's crazy, that's criminal, that's shameful. Most of those homicides are created by perpetrators who are under the age of 25, even more under the age of 18. We have AK-47 toting 13 and 14-year-olds walking down our city streets. In my city, someone is shot at every day on average. Every day. That's attempted murder. Every day. At least once a week, someone is transported to a hospital as a result of a gunshot wound. Many times that's a young man. Many more times it's an African-American young man. And most oftentimes it's a young man who is under the age of 18. Under the age of 18 and out of school. Depressed. Oftentimes with child. Many times using substances, alcohol and drugs. Low academic achiever, not a dummy, but often considered a low academic achiever, limited vocational skills, unhappy, but a child, no less, a baby. I've sat down with many of these trigger pullers, and it often blows my mind that they're babies. They are babies. And they have no idea what they're doing to themselves. No idea. And what blows me away even more is that when you boil all of the fat away, these babies want what we all want, to be appreciated, to be affirmed, to be validated, to be acknowledged, to be hugged and cared for by folks like us in this room. Each of us has a role to play. And our young people, in many cases, are not only dropping out of school as a result of not having access to it. And what I mean by access, folks, I mean, can you imagine growing up in a community like many of our elders grew up? When they did something on this corner that was bad, as soon as they turned the corner, somebody was up on them. My grandmother was a gangster. Both of them were. Because I hear the stories from my mom and my father about their gangsterism. Stuff that I can't even imagine folks doing today because I don't see it. We live in a time today where older men, when they see a group of younger men, are intimidated. Do you understand that for a young man back in the day, when they saw a group of old men, it was like, oh, let's go the other way. It is us adults who are doing that today. We see these cats with their pants sagging, hats turned to one side. We go, oh, not here. Let me get up out of here. And I got something to share with you because I went through it too. My grandmother, society, community has changed so much in terms of how it functions and how it is structured. You know, we have kids who live in apartment buildings where they have adults on top of them, beneath them, and on each side of them, and in some cases across from them. And those adults go out of their way to avoid those kids. Now, what do I mean about my grandparents being a gangster? And some of you are going to appreciate this more than others. My father tells me that he could walk down his street with a group of young men. And he said it's a time when elders sat out on their porches. And he says he could walk by some elders' homes far from his house, and he would hear those elders say, that's Daniel's boy. That's Ruthie Jean's son. Can you imagine what goes through a young child's head when they're acknowledged like that away from the house by elders? My dad also tells me when he did something inappropriate, 5, 6 blocks from his house, even without a telephone. By the time he got home, Gramps knew what was going on. And in fact, he said he went out of his way to keep it from his dad. It never worked. My grandmother, here's the gangsterism that I'm talking about. Both of them were known for coming off the porch when young men did things out of line with her shoe in her hand. Her shoe. And was willing to ask those youngsters, are you crazy? Are you crazy? But within the fabric of this was this understanding that love was in the air. Care was in the air. I care for my neighbor. I care for the young people that travel past me or through me to go to that schoolhouse. I care about the students in my classroom. And because I care about them, no matter what background they come from, how they look or don't look, I have a very high expectation for them. No matter who they are, I keep my expectation high, but I keep it packaged. I keep it packaged with flexibility. That is to say, I allow them to get there when they get there, not when I want them to get there. You see, because I understand, we must understand that all of these young people have their own internal clocks, just like we do. Some of you got it when you got it. Others of you got it at a different time. I often ask the question, how old is a child when he or she learns to walk for the first time? Throw me some answers, folks. 8 months. 11 months. 9. Well, you see what I'm saying? They get it when they get it. Some at 8, like my daughter. Now, she's the first. My son, he said, hell, I'm going to wait till the last moment. He waited till 13 months. Right? He's like, hey, man, I'm chilling. But he got it. And in the midst of our young people getting it, we have to keep modeling it. We have to keep being healthy so they can be healthy. And being healthy means saying what needs to be said in love. When it needs to be said, to have the courage to leap for our young people, to leap, to take the jump off the cliff for our young people. That is what we're required to do. Ask your own parents. Young people showed up to stretch us out. Ask your mom. Ask your dad. Did you not have them scratching their head? But you're here, and I guarantee you, every single one of you had a mama and a daddy at times that said, oh, Lord, please help this child. They were brought here to stretch us out, to take our game to a higher level. That's what happens when we stretch ourselves out and we transcend our comfort zones and we're willing to go deeper into areas of the unknown that frighten us, that challenge us, requires that we look deeper and harder at and for the solutions to our issues and challenges. We have to acknowledge that it's bigger than us. And so many times we play small, unwilling to acknowledge that, unwilling to appreciate that the experiences of one generation becomes the history of the next. Think about that for a second. The experiences of this generation will become the history of the next generation. And the history of several generations becomes the traditions of a people. Now let's think about that for a second. What kind of tradition, what kind of legacy are we leaving?